What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Brilliant Resilient Experience.
And that's something I'm trying to do with my promotion as I'm trying to build these fighters up, get them fans, give them a chance to shine and as an amateur. And that way, when they do turn pro, they have a following, they can sell tickets, and they're going to make more money.
Today we have a very special guest. He is an absolute savant in the St. Louis kickboxing scene. He is a kickboxing promoter. He owns a gym. He's a coach. He's also a fighter himself. He's the owner of the Stand Up Fight Series kickboxing promotion based right here in St. Louis. And he's also the owner and head coach at Maryville Muay Thai. I'm really excited to talk to him about the growth of the sport, what he sees for the future of Stand Up Fight Series, and most importantly, the upcoming event on November 11th in St. Charles, Missouri. Let's go ahead and bring on Chad Mueller. How are you?
I'm cold because I'm in my new gym, and I've been battling with the gas company because they were supposed to come last week, and they showed up on the wrong day. Then they couldn't book me for another week out.
Oh, I was going to ask you about that because I saw a picture you'd posted saying that you had a new gym because you own Maryville Muay Thai, right?
Correct. Yep.
And then where is this gym at?
This one's in St. Peters, Missouri.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Kind of more my neck of the woods. That's awesome.
Okay. Yep.
So you where's is Maryville Muay Thai? Is that like over by Maryville, like the school?
No, it's in Illinois. So like Collinsville,
Oh,
Edwardsville.
Maryville. Oh,
Yeah.
so that's way out there. Okay. Nice. So you've
Yeah,
got
45 minutes from here.
Illinois and Missouri now. That's awesome.
Yep.
Sweet. So you're expanding.
I am, yeah.
That's awesome. That's really exciting. Well, cool. Well, yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you about because I saw that. I was like, huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that one's All Saints, right? Was the name of it?
Yep.
Nice. What made you kind of decide to open a second location?
Being a promoter, are we in the podcast now? Is this it?
Yes.
Oh shit. Okay. Wait, I didn't do an intro, so I wasn't sure.
Oh no, I already did your intro. You're good.
Oh, okay. So being a promoter, having fights, there's not a lot of gyms out here, for stand up. My last couple cards, it's been my gym, maybe the church, ES MMA, and maybe like one or two guys from like a different gym. And, so if I want to keep putting on shows, we need to keep having more talent. I want to keep growing. Like Maryville, my gym in Maryville is the only Muay Thai gym in the St. Louis area. So I figured, why not? I have the free time. I've had Maryville now for 12 years. So that place kind of runs itself. I'm there 3 days a week. So now I'm here 3 days a week. I got Janice Taylor over here. I'm going to be coaching some classes at the new gym. So it's just kind of a win-win for me because I can get more talent, more fighters into the area. I can continue to grow Muay Thai, which is I'm passionate about. And then, but yeah, and then also I live over here in St. Peters now, and my wife has been pestering me about opening one over here for a while. So,
yeah, I bet. That's awesome. Yeah, I was thinking about that not too long ago, actually. I was talking to somebody about that. I'm like, there's a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms and even a lot of MMA gyms, especially like in St. Charles County. There's tons of like jiu-jitsu and even like taekwondo and stuff like that, karate, but there's not really a whole lot of like boxing, striking gyms or even kickboxing, where it's more like the Muay Thai type of thing. And I just started training at ES a couple months ago. And that was one reason that I wanted to train there, was just because of their striking program, because I wanted to kind of start with more, and I've trained boxing before, but I wanted to start with more of like just focusing on the striking boxing and then maybe get into kickboxing and then later on add the grappling and all that stuff. If, that's something I end up wanting to do. So I really like that they had so many boxing classes and so many striking classes. Cause it's like, yeah, obviously jiu-jitsu is awesome. But it's something that I want to do kind of later on. It's not something I want to do like right now. And so but I noticed that there's just tons of jiu-jitsu programs. And then, I feel like the striking is a little lacking. So that's awesome that you're kind of bringing that to St. Charles County. That's really cool.
Yeah. And we're going to have more, as I'm getting these fighters built up, I'm going to help them open gyms, so the Muay Thai in the area is just only getting started. So I'm excited.
That's really cool. I feel like, yeah, we need that in Missouri and in the St. Louis scene, is just to kind of more of like a scalable type of thing where it's not just one gym and here's a gym there and there's a gym here and it's all separate teams. It's like kind of replicating yourself in a way a little bit, which is awesome. So you're obviously pretty much live and breathe combat sports. So has this been something that you've been involved in your entire life, or how, I guess, kind of going back in time, how did you get into it?
Yeah, so when I was about 10 or 11, I started with Taekwondo, did that for a couple of years. And then when I was 16, um, I had, so it's going to date me a little bit. So back in the day, to watch UFC, you could get them at Blockbuster. And I used to always see like the UFC videos at Blockbuster, but you had to be over 16 to rent them. So I couldn't rent it. So I finally turned 16 and I rented the UFC, and I saw them hitting the pads. And I was like, that looks sweet. Like, I want to do that. So then I looked up a kickboxing gym, because there really wasn't MMA gyms back then. And like, this was like 2002, 2003. There wasn't really kickboxing gyms or MMA gyms. So I found a kickboxing gym. It was American style. It was Ronnie DeLeon, who was a two-time world champion. But it was above the waist kickboxing. So that's kind of how I got my start. And then from there, I just been training ever since.
Nice. That's awesome. So it wasn't something that like your family kind of got you into, something you kind
No,
of just found on your own.
exactly. Yep. I love the Power
Nice.
Rangers and Ninja Turtles and the Three Ninjas growing up. So it was just kind of a good era to come up in.
That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of, I'm the same way. Like, I just kind of started watching it. Like, a couple of my friends watched it, and at first I was like, "This is crazy." I'm like, "You guys watch this stuff?" And then and then I was like, oh, "I love this. This is awesome." And my dad's a huge MMA fan, but he never really was like training martial arts or anything like that. Like, he had, hit the bag and stuff like that, and his dad boxed, but like, yeah, he never really did anything. So it was kind of similar. Like, I just kind of found it on my own, and then it just became my obsession. Obviously now I'm like all in, obsessed with it. But
Yeah, same.
yeah, that's awesome. Well, that's really cool. And how did you, I guess, I mean, you were a fighter before. When
Correct.
and you don't fight anymore, do you? I mean, I can't
No, so my
imagine you
last
have
fight was
time.
in 2019. And then right after that, so I had two fights. My goal going into 2020, I just turned pro, was to have 12 fights that year. So that was like, I was going to Thailand a bunch. I was training, fighting over there.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was my big goal, was to have, 12 fights that year. Well, I was two fights in 5 weeks. And in December, I dislocated my knee for the fourth time. It had been 17 years since it happened. So I thought I was like over that phase of my life, but apparently
Yeah.
not. So I dislocated my knee again. And the doctor said, you need surgery, or else it's just going to keep happening. And every time you do it, there's a chance you're going to tear your ACL and stuff like that. So my knee, I was ready to fight again. I was, motivated. I'm going to rehab this, but my knee just it kind of atrophied. So I lost a lot of strength in my knee and there's a lot of stability. So I just don't trust it anymore. But I still kind of want to do one more fight, maybe in Thailand. So we'll see.
That would
If I
be
can talk my
dope.
wife into it, that's the big battle. That's the fight before the fight.
Did you see what they're doing in Thailand on Saturday?
Yeah, yeah. Did I see? Yes, with Sanchai and Bare Knuckle and
That's
Buckout.
so
Yep.
crazy.
Yeah.
I
Now
couldn't
we'll
believe
see
it
if
when
it
I
actually
saw that.
happens or not. But
I know. That's why I looked at it. I'm like, there's no way this is real. I'm like, I'm like, there's just no way.
so it's kind of funny.
Uh,
Sanchai was at my gym last year.
really?
And afterwards, we were eating a bunch of Thai food and we were talking and I don't know how it came up. I think it was just, do you have any fights that you're looking forward to? And he goes, I really want to fight Macau. And now we all thought he was just like kind of like, oh, joking. But then like 3 weeks after he said that, that fight announcement happened. And we're like, oh, he was serious. Okay.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm really curious to see how that plays out. I'm gonna watch it because it's on in the morning.
Yeah, it'll
So I'm
probably be
like,
about 9
sweet.
a.m. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna watch it. I'm so curious because I'm like, this is just gonna be nuts if it actually like if they actually show up and make that fight happen.
Mhm.
If nothing falls through. Yeah, that's just going to be insane. And that's something too that I've kind of wanted to delve into a little bit more, because like obviously with MMA I'm pretty well versed on like all the promotions and the fighters and stuff, but kickboxing is honestly a new thing for me, so it's something I'm really excited to learn more about. And being involved with stand up fight series and talking to people like you, I feel like will help me a lot with kind of learning more of the kickboxing side, and that can only help with my MMA knowledge too. So it's like, yeah, it's really cool. And I feel like the sport has so much potential to grow. And especially in the US, like it's obviously big in Thailand and even like the Dutch kickboxing and stuff like that. But here it's not as big, but gosh, it has a lot of potential. Especially for people who, I feel like that's a lot of times the hesitation with some people with MMA, especially now that it's so advanced, is the grappling. They don't really understand a lot of the exchanges. Whereas when they're watching kickboxing, it's kind of easier for them to follow it, I feel like. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I definitely agree. Everyone's favorite part of the MMA fight is when they're standing.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
kickboxing we used to sell at arenas. So my mentor with the promotions, his name's Johnny Davis. He was a two-time world champion. They would sell out arenas when they would fight. They were on ESPN. It was big time fights. And then when MMA came in, everyone kind of shifted their focus to that, and we kind of forgot about our sport. So our sport used to do 9, 12 round title fights for the American kickboxers, and they were getting paid really, really well. But when MMA came, for some reason, all the promoters started doing 3 and 5 rounds. So I think that was kind of the wrong, route to go. We had a lot of exciting fighters. That's another thing, Rick Rufus, Don Wilson. There's just so many of them. They were exciting to watch. And
Yeah.
now, like, if you look at American kickboxing and Muay Thai, there's not really anyone that's like super exciting to watch it. Like, oh, I got to get up and like watch this guy. And that's something I'm trying to do with my promotion, is I'm trying to build these fighters up, get them fans, give them a chance to shine and as an amateur. And that way, when they
Yeah.
do turn pro, they have a following, they can sell tickets, and they're going to make more money. But if you want to turn pro and you sell 10 tickets, well, I'm not going to pay you, a good amount of money. So it's kind of like a hand in hand thing. But I think
Yeah.
going more rounds, like we've been doing, like the 9 round fights, and just building these fighters up, I think we can get back to it. I think it'll take someone with big money. I think it'd be cool. I'm not a big fan of like the UFC of like doing kickboxing, because I know they're not going to do it justice. I would love for some really rich guy to give me a bunch of money to do it. That'd be great. So if you're watching,
Yeah.
come on, I'm your guy. I'll grow this with you. But yeah, it's just so hard. It's I want the sport to grow. I just don't know how, besides what I've been doing with the point tournaments and with the fight nights, with the stand up fight series. But it really is just, it's almost like some of these big promoters in like boxing.
Mhm.
They get one big boxer, they build them up, and they can sell out that arena. That's kind of what I want to do. And I think that's kind of my avenue, is I got to find that star and
Yep.
build them up into a world champion. And then the fans will come.
Absolutely. And I think that honestly, I've seen several fighters that you've had on that in some that are going to be in the November 11th card that could be. I really do think so. And I think it's just more so um getting promotion. I mean, and that's why I've been trying to kind of help show a little bit of their personality with like the podcast and bringing them on. And I'm hoping that really helps too. And anything I can do to help, just let me know for sure. Cause I know it takes a village. It's not, it's not something you can just do by yourself. Like, you got to have people in your corner to help you. And, but I do think it has a lot of potential. So that's why I've been wanting to help grow and go to the events and bring people to the events too, because it's exciting. It's not something where they have to follow the whole sport to really have fun at the event and to be entertained. It's like they could have never seen a combat sports event before, go to that event and have a great time. So, and even though it's amateur fighters, it's like they're not going to care. They just want to see, knockouts. They want to see action. Like they don't care who's fighting necessarily. And then, but then if you can get, a big star, I think that will only take it to a whole nother level. And then, like you said, bringing, kind of helping them build their career while they're an amateur. Because it's almost kind of like anything else, you know, you want to do the things that you are going to do when you get to that level, even when you're at the amateur level, you know,
Exactly.
like doing interviews, doing post-fight stuff, and doing press conferences and all that kind of stuff. And I was even thinking, I'm like, man, how cool would that be if we had like a press conference for these things? Like that would be so dope. Like I would love it. And it would just be, it would be really cool. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And it helps the fighters too, because it helps get more attention on them. And then they can get, you know, better sponsorships and all kinds of things. So I appreciate what you're doing. I think it's really cool. And not a lot of other people are doing what you're doing, especially on the amateur level. So that's awesome. When did this all start with Stand Up Fight Series? How long have you been doing it?
So before I go on to that, something they kind of said, you know, I've been on a big like kick. I'm actually recording my own episode on this just for the Stand Up Fight Series podcast. But
Nice.
the fighters, you got to let people know you're a fighter. You know, you got to post on social media. You got to do the things like what you're doing. Have your own podcast. Like build a fan base. You know, that's the way to do it. That's how you make good money in this sport. I had a guy for the IKF USA title for my pro fight. He wanted to fight Drew Gigax, and he was asking for this crazy amount of money. And I'm like, dude, you know, you won't even sell 10 pay-per-views. Like, why would I pay you that money? You know, it's got to make sense. At the end of the day, this is a business,
Yeah.
and I'm not just out here to give handouts, you know, free money. You know, you got to pull your own weight as well. But the way I got
Yep.
started with this is I was actually at an IKF East Coast Classic tournament out in Myrtle Beach, and I thought I was walking into the locker room, and I walked in, and there's like these people fighting on these like mats. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? I had no idea what was happening. Well, come to find out, it was the IKF point kickboxing tournament side. You know, then they also had a side with the ring and doing the full contact fights in there. So I was like, what is going on? This is kind of cool. So then I called that promoter, and I was like, hey, what can we do to bring this to St. Louis? He goes, yeah, you could be the promoter, right? You could do it. I'm like, oh, okay. I didn't know that was like a thing. Like, I thought you would just come and like just bring the tournament. I know I could be involved because I had always wanted to be a promoter. I just didn't know how to get into it. It was kind of like
Yeah.
that paralysis by analysis thing. Because I mean, these shows, I spend a lot of money on these shows. You know, it's no joke. Like you could lose your
I can
ass on
tell.
these shows. You know, I know plenty of people who have done a show and lost $20,000. So it's a very scary game. But doing the point tournaments and having Johnny Davis mentor me, he has been a promoter for over 20 years out in California, very successful over there. And he's mentored me, showed me the ropes, you know, taught me how to do it. And that way I had the confidence, you know, I think I did like 6 PKBs before I did my first full contact show. So I had a really good experience of running an event before I even did my first full one. So
That's awesome. Yeah, I was really curious about that because I'm like, how do you just become a promoter? I'm like, I would have no idea how to even remotely get started doing that. Like, that's crazy. But that's awesome. And then, you know, you never know how far you can take it. I mean, honestly, it's really cool. It's really cool. And especially to do it here in St. Louis is awesome. I feel like we need, you know, a big fight promotion like that, you know, non MMA fans, you know, will want to come to, because like I said, a lot of fans or people that want to go to fights, like they just don't understand the whole sport of MMA. So they're like, I don't know. But then kickboxing, it's just a completely different sport, and it's more action packed, more entertaining, and something that I feel like will be easier to get people into from outside of the sport, which is kind of what I'm trying to do. That's kind of my vision for what I'm doing with my podcast and my content, is to bring people from outside of the sport to combat sports. And because that's the only way to grow it. You know, if your whole circle of who you talk to and who's watching your content, if your whole circle is only combat sports people, only MMA people, then you're never really going to grow, because you're just competing. You know, you're just competing with all the other promotions, and you're competing with all the other, you know, fighters and all that kind of stuff. So it's like, if you kind of focus on, okay, can I bring people from stand-up comedy? Can I bring people from other, like other avenues and help kind of grow the sport? Because I think there is a huge untapped market out there of people that want to maybe do something different on the weekends besides go to the bar, besides, they want to do something fun. And it's something that is just different. And you don't have to drive 2 hours to go there. You don't have to pay $300 for tickets like the UFC. It's something that is relatively affordable, and it's entertaining, and it's fun. So I love it. I think it's great.
Well, yeah, and you nailed it. Especially out here in St. Louis. Someone was asking me the other day, like, do I want to go out and like do shows in other places? And I said, not really. Like, I want to grow this here in St. Louis because I think, here in the middle of the country, it's easy to bring fighters in. And I want to build these amateurs that we have up now. So, like right now, people have been building up, Patrick Vega, Trey Lewis, Carter Rustio, Ty Brackett, Big Country, Austin Mueller, Kendall Whited. There's a few other names out there that people have been building up. So that way, when we turn pro, we can really give people, a good show.
Yeah, I was wanting to talk to you about that too, because there's a lot of fighters I saw. I went to the last show, and I was really impressed with that. I was really impressed more so with just the personality, I guess, of a lot of the fighters and how you kind of made that shine. And with the walkouts, like the walkouts are so awesome. It's like my favorite walkouts I've seen on a local show. So awesome. And I feel like that is so important. And that's something that I really like about BKFC too, like what they do with their walkouts. Like they really kind of bring that personality to it, but then it's a real fight. It's not like WWE where it's a fake fight, and all this fake glitz and glam. It's like a real fight. So it's really cool. And then there's a lot of fighters on that card that I watched before, and then also in this upcoming one, like even both fighters in the main event. Reese, like I just had him on the show, and he's got some personality. He was really fun to talk to. He's got a really cool story. And then Patrick Vega, obviously, I think he has huge potential too to be a big star. He's got like that dog in him, like,
well, and he also has a
love
crazy
that.
story from, being a former drug addict to, now fighting for the IKF USA title. So, combat sports has changed his life. So it's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. And I think there's so many people that can resonate with that, even if they're not a fighter. Even people who just train, like it's made a huge impact on my life. I mean, it's not something that I think I'll really ever take to like a professional level or anything. I mean, I might, think about competing in maybe like an amateur or something, but at some point just to do it and experience it. But it's not something that I would ever like probably think about as a career. But even then, still just what training has done for me mentally is huge. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm a different person when I train. And I've noticed that since I started training at ES again, because I took like a little over a year off of training because I was running my business, and I honestly just like gave up everything else in my life just to focus on it because it took up so much of my time. And then when I left, then I kind of realized that there's a big piece of my life missing, and it was training. And I was still lifting and working out, obviously, but taking away that training, it just changed my whole mentality. So then when I got back into it, like at first it took me a while, and I told Eric, I'm like, be patient with me. I'm like, I haven't trained in a while. I'm like, I'm gonna suck for a little bit, but I'll get back into it, and I'll be good. And he's been super patient with me. He's a great coach, so
Yeah,
I
Eric's a
really
great guy.
appreciate. Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, he's great. I love training there. I couldn't ask for a better gym. I couldn't ask for a better team. Everybody there's so positive. Kendall, Austin Miller, they're just amazing human beings. Like I love being there. The energy is just amazing at that gym. It really is. But and that's another thing too. It gives you community because you're around people who are like-minded. You're around people who have kind of common goals. So it's been huge for me. And I think a lot of people can resonate with that. And that's kind of what the angle I want to take too with sharing their stories. It's obviously fun to talk trash and do all that stuff. And that obviously helps sell tickets. but I think people get attached to a story too. I think people get attached to somebody they can identify with, somebody they can relate to. I think that's why a lot of people, you know, I think that's why Sean Strickland's become really popular, because he's kind of got like just a relatable personality. Like, even though a lot of people don't like him, there's also a lot of people that relate to him in a lot of ways. And other fighters too, with just having that story in that background. But what are some fights that you're really looking forward to on November 11th? And let's kind of get into that card.
Yeah, so pretty much the whole main card
Yeah.
is they're bangers. The first couple fights, I think first 4 or 5 fights are going to be, guys making their debuts, or maybe have 1 or 2 fights. But then we start getting up there. I think the prelim main fight is going to be Ty Prackett versus Leon. So it's got a Thailand versus Myanmar fight, which is huge rivalry between those 2 countries. That's like how Muay Thai was created. The Thais created it to fight the Burmese, which is now Myanmar. So those 2 are going to be fighting off, starting off the fights. They're going to be kicking off the main event of the prelim card. So that one's going to be really cool. So Ty Prackett, he's one of my fighters. He's half Thai. The kid's just super slick.
I've seen him before. He was on the last card, right?
Yeah, his debut on his last card. It did not look like his debut.
No.
You credit that to, he's done a bunch of the point kickboxing tournaments, but it's just in his blood, that Thai blood.
He's a
so that
killer.
Fight's going to be really exciting.
Oh yeah, I was really impressed. I remember that was one performance that really stood out to me the last time. And also just his name's really memorable too, and that helps a lot. That really helps a lot. It's underrated. Like, honestly, like, having a good name, whether it's your actual name or you have a fighter name, I think it's really cool. Like Austin Outlaw Miller, and like there is something to that. Like, it's memorable. And I remembered, and that was even before I started training at ES. Like, I remembered Austin, I remembered Ty, and obviously I had already known Patrick before that. I've known Patrick for a while. But it really does make a big difference. And I saw him hitting pads. I think it was on Instagram or something the other day. And I was like, whew.
Oh yeah.
Like, he's going to be a problem.
Yep. And he's still very, very new. I mean, he's got a long way to go still. But just what he's shown so far, like, I can show him something and he can pick it up really quick. Whether it's like mannerisms or just a little bit of a technique. Some people can't do that. Some people, they got to really work at it. He can just pick up really quick. And that was kind of like my gift as a fighter. I could kind of do the same thing. And that's why I was able to progress really quickly when I was in Thailand, was I could just pick things up. So some people have that. Some people don't. They got to work on it a little bit harder. But Ty's got that. And that's what's going to make him great.
That's awesome. So this is only his second fight?
Only second fight. Yep. So he's fighting a kid from Marathon MMA.
Yeah, from Kansas City, right?
Yeah, so I think he's
that's
2
where
and 1 in
Armfield
MMA.
trains.
Yeah.
Nice. Wow. That's cool. That's really cool. How many fights does his opponent have?
He's 2 and 1.
Oh, okay. So they're pretty close.
Yeah, so it's his first
in MMA.
fight. Yeah.
Ah, that's interesting. So that's really interesting too. And I've noticed that, like, Austin, he was an MMA fighter, went to kickboxing, and I've noticed and Reese has fought in MMA. I think he started with kickboxing and then went MMA and then now back kickboxing.
So that, a lot of guys are doing that because they think that's where the money's going to be at, which it is right now. But with ONE FC, getting bigger, with saying a fight series, we're going to get bigger. You're going to be able to make money off kickboxing and Muay Thai soon here in America. Look at Australia. Australia is paying really good money for their Thai fighters. So it's coming. Guys got to be patient, stop abandoning our sport, trying to chase money in MMA, because that's what they're doing. And that's what happened in the 90s. That's why kickboxing died.
Yeah, it seems like now it just seems like it's getting harder and harder to make money in MMA from what I've seen, just because, first of all, there's so many more fighters now. So many people are doing MMA. So many people are starting training just MMA. Mm-hmm. They're not even starting where it used to be. you're a kickboxer, or you're a jujitsu guy, or, you're a wrestler. It used to be a very, like, everybody had kind of like a strong base before they went to MMA, but now people are going into MMA as an MMA fighter. So it's kind of interesting. And I've noticed that there's just so many more fighters. And I was talking to Keith Richardson about this not too long ago. And he was kind of saying how, like, before, because he never got to make it to the UFC, but he had 33 pro MMA fights. So it's like he had wins over multiple UFC vets and never got to make it to the UFC. But if he were, maybe 5-10 years later in his career, might have been able to, because now you can get into the UFC with like 6-7 pro MMA fights. And like that was unheard of years ago. So it's insane. And but at the same time, they're doing more shows. They're doing all these, like Apex cards with the UFC, like shows pretty much every weekend. And then we got PFL now. So it just seems like it's getting a little saturated. And it's got to be harder to make money when there's just more fighters and more shows going on. And unless you're a really big name, unless you're selling, a bunch of tickets, unless you're a draw, I could see it being more and more difficult to
and
make
that's why
money.
I keep telling people, don't abandon kickboxing. It's on its way up. There's so much room to grow. Just be patient and be loyal. It's coming. Another good fight I'm looking forward to is Marcellus Edwards and Dan Harina.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a good one. Dan's fighting at 205, which is a lot better weight class for him. He dipped his toe. I think he had 3 heavyweight fights, and he just doesn't belong there. He's a big guy, but he's not naturally that big of a guy. Marcellus Edwards, he's coming off a loss versus the IKF champion Clayton Sheldon, but Edwards is tough. Like he had probably like close to 30 unsanctioned boxing fights, kind of like a street beef. They have like a Decatur fight night where it's pretty wild. You look it up on YouTube.
Awesome.
So he has a lot more experience, than what's on the tail of the tape. So that's going to be a good fight because Edwards been talking smack, saying he's going to retire Dan, and so all I did was just motivate Dan more. So that's going to be a good one.
I love it. That's hilarious. Yeah, I've seen him chirping on social media. I've seen Dan. He's so funny.
He's a character. He is something else.
He's another one that could be a huge character too. Like, I mean, especially if he wins this fight. I got to bring him on the pod if he wins this fight, because he's such a character. He would be so funny. Just great sense of humor, and also just a character for sure. With the mohawk, it's fantastic. Oh, yeah. I love it. Yeah, I'm really excited for that fight too. And that's one thing that I feel like I was kind of thinking about this when I was talking to Keith too, is like a lot of amateur fighters, their record and their experience is deceiving a lot of times, because their skill level might be a lot higher than what their record shows or what their technical, experience shows, because you have to consider that amateur fighters, a lot of times, this is not their career. This is not what they're doing with 90% of their time. This is something they're doing on the side. So they don't have the time to do as many fights a lot of times, or to train as much as somebody who's, a career fighter. So it's like their skill level could be here, but they've only had, like so many fights. And I feel like that's why a lot of times you go to these amateur shows and you see these fighters, and a lot of them look like they could be pro because they've been training for so long, or because they take their training so seriously, but they have a full-time job, like Vince Guerin, he's like a doctor. Like it's crazy. And so I feel like that's something that too, a lot of people kind of forget, is that, they have a whole life outside of fighting. This is just what they do on this. This is a hobby for them right now, but they treat it like a career. And I love that.
Yeah, that's what 2 of my fighters actually. So one of them, Carter Rustio, he's fighting for the title. He's actually fighting a really tough kid that's 10-4. And he's out of Dean Lessy's gym, which is Luke Lessy. So Luke Lessy, he's one of the top, pro Muay Thai fighters. He's probably going to be getting a call to ONE FC here pretty soon. He's really fun to watch. So this is his main training partner. So the kid's good. But wow. Carter, so he has just got back from Thailand. He has been there twice. He fought out there. He did this camp out in Tulum, Mexico, because he's a nurse here in St. Louis, so he's able to take, a month off and go out and
Nice.
train where you can only focus on training and live that fighter life. So yes, he's an amateur, but he's been training like a pro for the last year. So I'm really excited about him. He has big goals of, making it to ONE FC. So I'm trying to build him up, get him all this experience, mentoring him and get him going. And then Max Reed, who's also fighting for a title, also went and did the Tulum, Mexico training camp as well. So it's cool to see these kids, these young guys, living life, doing things like that. Because I didn't go to Thailand until I was 31. And I just wish so badly that I could have done it when I was in my 20s and just moved out there and lived out there and trained the way I was supposed to train.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm excited for these kids.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I didn't realize that some of these guys were training like that. That's awesome. Wow. That's
Yeah.
really cool. Yeah, you don't see that a lot. I mean, a lot of times, when you go to these local shows, they just train at a local gym. They're not like this weekend we've got Shamrock and Josh, he's training at Extreme, but other than that, I mean, most of the fighters on the card are probably training at local gyms and stuff like that. So that's really cool. Wow, that's awesome. And you just never know who, like, that's why I always say when you watch these local shows, you never know who you're going to see and where they are going to go after, later in their career. You just
And that's
never know.
something that I really pride myself as a matchmaker. So I'm really connected, in the Muay Thai kickboxing community in the country. I go to a lot of tournaments. I travel all over the country for all these tournaments. I meet all these coaches. That way I'm always networking. I know who's who. I know who's exciting. I know who pulls out. I know what gyms, stay away from. And that's why, you said the high level of my fights at my shows is that's one of the big reasons why, is I have that good network that I've built, just like you were doing with your podcast and all that. Same thing. And unfortunately, some of these promoters, they don't have a network. They aren't, intertwined into the community like that.
Yeah. Well, and you're putting yourself out there too. Like, you're the only promoter I've had on my podcast, and you're the only promoter that has even wanted to come on. So it's like, it's not something that, a lot of them do. And I think it's really cool that and I think it's only going to help you. Because people want to know who's behind all of this. They want to know the story behind it. They want to get attached to it a little bit. And I think that helps. And then you have like a personal, just like a passion for it too, and a passion for all the fighters that you bring on. Like, a lot about them, and a lot of times that's not the case. They don't know the whole story behind the fighters. They don't know, like, I'm actually really impressed with how much you know about them. That's so cool. Yeah, it's awesome. And just how intertwined you are with it is really cool, and I think we really need that. And like you said, networking is so important. Like, I tell people that is the most important thing to me that I've done that's helped me get, and I'm not even anywhere near the point that I want to get to. Like, I'm trying to go big. Like,
Oh yeah.
I really am. But it's like, I know there's levels to it. And just like fighting, you have to take those steps. But in order to sometimes take those steps, you have to network with people who are at a higher level than you, or that are doing things that are maybe in a different lane than you. And then you can kind of bring ideas from, different people. And it's so important. And also just like having people to talk to that get it, like, that's also huge, because it makes you feel a little less crazy. And having people around you that have a growth mindset is really important. That's been something that's been huge for me, is talking to people like you, talking to people like, even the fighters like Austin Miller, Reese Newman. I just had them on not too long ago, and talking to people like that who really have a vision for their future that is bigger than just fighting in a local show, or, having, a local thing. Like, they want to go big. And those are the kind of people I want to surround myself with, for sure.
Absolutely. And that's how you do it. That's why I have my mentor, Johnny Davis. Like I said, he was a 2-time world champion. He's the real deal. He's the one that started the IKF East Coast Classic. Without him, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, having mentors is huge too. And that's another thing I preach is, find people who are doing it on the level that you want to be doing it, and then you will get to that level a lot faster. Rather than trying to figure it all out by yourself, because it's hard. And it can save you a lot of time. It can save you a lot of headache
A lot of
when
money.
you yeah, a lot of money too, for sure. Well, and that's something that I kind of want to help the fighters with is, like you said, it's really important to market yourself as a fighter. And I even had a marketing guy on not too long ago, and we were talking about kind of just like how important marketing is for fighting. Um, and it is really important to market yourself and let people know you are a fighter. Let people know, about your fights, and promote yourself on social media. I mean, social media is free. So it's like, why not, like, that's why I'm always posting on social media, because it's free. Like, you don't have to pay for it. Like, I can just sit there and post all the time, and it takes me 10 seconds. It's not something that takes me hours and hours and hours to do. And even like my content, like I've gotten it down to a process where, I could bust out, like this week, I'm, busting out 5 podcasts, and it's like, I've got to a point where I can do that because I figured out a system, I figured out a process. And that's something that I kind of want to help the fighters with too, is like helping teach them how to create their own content and teach them how to, kind of get started. Because man, I made a lot of mistakes when I started, and I had a lot of headaches and wasted a lot of time. And if I would have kind of had a little bit more direction, and I did have people help me a little bit in the beginning, but I could have used maybe a little bit more help. And so that's something too. And any fighter that's listening to this, if they want help with, creating their own content and getting started, like, by all means, reach out to me. I will help you, because I had people help me when I got stuck. And it's also just kind of getting started with it too. Sometimes is the obstacle, or kind of getting out of your comfort zone a little bit with putting yourself out there. But yeah, that's something that you do really well, is focusing on kind of promoting, like you're promoting it on social media constantly, I see, and kind of bringing the personality. I saw a clip of Austin Miller that was hilarious.
That was good.
Stuff like that is great. Do you guys have a TikTok for Stand Up Fight Series?
No, my wife always gets on me about it, but I just have so much shit going on.
Yeah.
It's between 2 gyms, the point tournaments, because I host point tournaments all around the Midwest. It's not just here in St. Louis. We're going out to Indiana, Kansas City, Georgia, all over. And then also the Stand Up Fight Series. So I got to kind of cut it somewhere, and I would like to get on there, and I want to get to the point where I can hire someone to do that. It's just not there yet. I always got to remind myself, this is only my 5th show coming up.
It's
sometimes
crazy.
I'm like, why? Yeah, sometimes I'm like, why am I not on ESPN yet? And I'm like, oh yeah, it's my 5th show. Calm down.
I know, I do the same thing. That's funny. Well, I was gonna say, because I was really like resistant to TikTok for a while. Like, I had a TikTok before, and then I kind of got off of it, and then I was like, TikTok's stupid. I'm like, I don't want to. TikTok sucks. I'm like, I don't want to do this. And then I was like, man, I missed out on so many views because I wasn't posting. Like, I could have been so much bigger by now, probably, if I would have been utilizing it sooner. So I made a separate account just for my podcast, and I had one clip on there get like 100,000 views, and it was just like a random, like, I didn't even think anything of it when I posted it. I was just like posting all my clips, and I've seen other people, like I have a friend of mine that has a podcast. Theirs just got 4 million views on TikTok, one of their clips. So it's like, they're just like giving away views, it seems like. So I was going to say, yeah, if you don't have that, that might be something to think about, because clips like that, like the Austin Miller one, like that's one that I feel like could go viral. Stuff like that, you just never know. And it could bring a whole lot of attention to it. So, but it is kind of like annoying to have to go to like all these different apps and just like posting and then writing the caption. Like, it just feels like a pain in the ass. So I get it. but I think it would help in, to have one just for Stand Up Fight Series, where it's just all dedicated to Stand Up Fight Series content. in kind of showcasing the fighters and things like that. I think that would be huge. But yeah, I was resistant to it for a while, and I regret it because I I saw like how many people were kind of getting views lately, and I'm like, dang, I should have been doing this a little while ago. But yeah, but you do a great job on Instagram and Facebook and all that. And like I said, that's super important. Um, how important is that for the fighters themselves too, to kind of have their own content? Or are there any fighters that have like a podcast or that have like constant or that are consistently creating content that you know of?
No, but they should, especially these, amateurs. Back in the day, Johnny Davis, my mentor, when he would go running, he would have Johnny Superfoot Davis shirts, front and back. People can read it. Superfoot hats, wears it everywhere. Like my brand, I wear my brands everywhere. I got my stand-up fight series. I wear this every day. If I'm not wearing this, I'm wearing a Maryville Muay Thai or point tournament. You got to be your brand all the
Yeah.
time. Posting, like I said, social media, make a vlog, make a YouTube. It's not hard. And I always tell people too, you can do a thing called post hacking. So you can find, a clip that maybe has gone viral or has like a couple 100,000 views, see what they did and just copy it, make it your own.
Yep.
You don't have to go out there and reinvent the wheel all the time. You can just see
Oh
what's
yeah.
working and make your own version of that. But even just posting, daily, post your training, post your run, post your what you're eating that day. People are interested. You'll be surprised.
Oh yeah, especially with nutrition and stuff too. Like even non-fighters will look at that. Like whenever I first kind of got into MMA, that was one thing I really liked about the fighters' social media pages was their diet and their like some of the recovery too, because like I have lupus, so recovery is something that's really, really important for me, even just with like my regular lifting routine. So I would see like fighters doing ice baths and stuff like that. And it was really interesting to me. And that was before ice baths were like all big like they are now. Like it was way before that. And so I started doing that like a while ago. And that was one thing that was really helpful for me, honestly, was seeing what the fighters do. Because even though I'm not fighting, it's still things that are helpful for me in just my daily life is, seeing what kind of food they're eating. And because even though I'm not trying to cut weight or anything like that, I do want to be healthy. And so it kind of inspired me to clean up my diet, and it kind of inspired me to like focus more on recovery, like stretching and foam rolling and doing all that kind of stuff. And all of that came from MMA fighters or just combat sports in general. It's just watching from their social media and watching like the Ultimate Fighter too is another thing. So I think it's super important. And even if people aren't fighters, I think it's content that they want to see. And I think that's why people like, Sean O'Malley or even like Stephen Wonderboy Thompson, fighters that have a really good like YouTube channel and social media presence. I think that's why they're so successful and why they'll be successful for a long time, even after they're done fighting, because they built such a strong brand and they've been able to figure out how to create content that people will want to watch, even if they're not really interested in the fighting side of it.
Absolutely. And like I said earlier, the more followers you have, the more people buying tickets, the more you're going to get paid. It's that simple. Conor McGregor,
Yep.
Jake Paul, Sugar Sean O'Malley, all those guys. It's if you don't have the following, it's why would I pay you 10 grand to fight? It doesn't make sense. So
100%. Well, like I said, hopefully I can help out with that. Bringing more fighters on the show, I think will help. And any of your fighters that ever want to come on my show, they're have a standing invitation. So
awesome.
send them my way. I'll interview them anytime. Yeah, because I'm looking to ramp up my schedule because I kind of just decided to take this full time recently, and go all in on it. So and I think that's the beautiful thing about like kind of what your fighters are doing too with their amateur career is they're doing it on the side while they're working a full-time job. And then it's like, imagine the level they can take it to when they can do it full-time.
Exactly.
And that's kind of what I'm starting to see is like, I'm like, oh man, I could do 5-6 podcasts a week. I'm like,
Yep.
this is awesome.
Well, and that's like when fighters, go to Thailand and train, they get better really quick. And the reason being is most of them only train maybe in a week, 5, 6 hours in a week.
Yeah.
In Thailand, that's one day. You're doing 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
So one day is 1 week in Thailand. Um, so that's why, you get so much better. So imagine, you're able to do that full time and, the amount of progress you're going to get. And also, I just wanted to say, I am looking forward to the day that I can write, a $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 check. I am looking forward to that day.
That would be so cool. Do you think you're gonna start doing pro level shows too?
So like right now in St. Louis, we don't have the pro talent to do it right now. We have
Makes
Drew
sense.
Gigax.
Yeah.
He's pretty much the only pro stand-up out here. We got Jamise Taylor. So those two are kind of like the only real pros. We have, Trey Crawford, but he's, a little bit older now. He's at the end of his career. He might have a couple more fights. So I'm looking for pros I can build up.
Sure.
And really get there. And, Drew, we were doing that with him. We had a big fight with Aaron Ortiz. Unfortunately, he dropped that. Then he went and fought another promotion, got hurt. So these guys, you got to be loyal a little bit and you got to, be bought into the system because I guarantee you, I've paid those pros their biggest payday so far.
Nice. That's awesome. You got to feel proud of yourself for that. That's really cool. Well, hopefully we can find some more talent. Are you kind of trying to hopefully find more talent in the like Midwest in Missouri and like this St. Louis area, or are you trying to pull from other states too?
For the pros, I need people that sell tickets at the end of the day. They have to be able to pull their weight. So that's why I'm committed to St. Louis. I think we have a lot of talent here. We can build them up, and like I said, it only takes that one superstar. That's all I need. It's just one, someone we can really get behind and push. That's going to be a big draw. So we'll see who it is. It might take a couple years. I know I'm excited for the future. Just our whole main card. All those guys are going to be pros one day. And I want to keep
Yeah.
building them up. And we're also going to have Liz Helton. They're going to be turning pro. They're two of our USA title champions out of here in St. Louis. Just getting them to be explosive, getting them to be exciting. These fighters tell them all the time, like, hey, we're not going to make big money, winning decisions. Like, you guys need to go out, put people away, be dynamic, be entertaining to watch.
For
That's what I'm looking
sure.
to build.
100%. Yeah, I think there are definitely some that have some really big potential. Kendall's one of them. I think
And,
Kendall, it could be a huge star. I
and
really
you
do.
haven't seen Trey Lewis yet. Trey Lewis is an
I've seen
absolute
a little bit.
knockout artist.
I've seen some posts about him. Is he on that card
He
on the
is.
11th?
Yep. So he should
Okay,
have
cool.
about 10 fights. He's only 3-1 right now. Should have about 10, 12 fights. People keep backing out. We've been at tournaments and the whole bracket backs out. It's just crazy.
Oh my God.
Dude's a
Okay, I gotta
monster, so
check
I'm
this
excited
guy
about him
out.
again.
Wow. That's awesome. Is he in a title fight on the
Not
11th?
a title fight this time. That's my goal though. Next time, get him a title fight and then turn him pro.
Nice. That's exciting. Yeah, I'll have to make sure I pay close attention. I'm excited this time around because the last time I feel like I was so unfamiliar with it that I
Yeah.
didn't really know what to look for. I was just kind of sitting back and enjoying the show. But this time I feel like I'm a little bit more invested, like, with talking to Austin and being at the gym now and talking to Reese and talking to all the different fighters. I feel like I'm just more intertwined with the community now, which is really cool. So I'm excited to be able to have a little bit more, I guess, of like a involvement in it this time around. Whereas before I was kind of just like sitting there by myself, like watching, because I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know any of the fighters besides Patrick. And so this time I'm really excited. And I've been spreading the word about it. I've been telling a lot of people about it. And so I'm hoping that, and I know it's the same night as UFC, the pay-per-view, but that's okay.
Screw UFC.
I'm willing
Way more
to
fun
miss
to be
out
there
on that.
live.
I'm willing to miss out on a pay-per-view for this. So
There you go.
but yeah, it's really cool. And so what's the biggest difference between the amateur and the pro fights in your promotion?
There's not a big difference, besides, our pro fighters, they're going to fight either 7 or 9 rounds. And
Okay.
eventually when I get the funds, we're going to, do 12-round fights, but I got to pay them enough, to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't like the little gloves like ONE FC does. Even the Thai fighters, they all hate it. You're getting more hand injuries, more devastating knockouts, more eye injuries.
Cuts, yeah, all that kind of
Cuts,
stuff.
and I think if you're a fighter, like you shouldn't do those fights unless you get paid very, very well.
Yeah.
But with ours, the 9-round fights, that's what separates us. That's what people know us about. We had the 8th-round knockout for the USA title in our pro fight. I mean, it was incredible. It was this nasty knockout. But if we wouldn't have had that 9th round, we never would have gotten that,
Yep.
so it was really cool. So that's what really separates it, besides like knees to the head. But also the speed. When you got those pros, those are guys that have been doing this 10, 12 years. They're going to
Yeah.
have a lot more speed, a lot more pop on their strikes, a little bit more chest match, or a lot more chest match. Some of these fighters, like pretty much the whole main card, they're all really good fighters, but they're all only 3, maybe 4 years in. They don't
Sure.
have that pop and that IQ yet. They're getting there. That's why we're building them up. But that's kind of the big differences for sure.
And then I guess what's the difference in the rules in the amateur fights?
So the difference in the rules, so like in amateurs, you can't knee to the face. Pros, you
Okay.
can. And then Muay Thai, you just won't have the elbow pads. And that's about it. There's not a big,
Okay.
big difference.
Not a huge difference. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I was curious about that because I didn't know how many different, but they allow elbows and stuff like that in the amateur.
In amateurs, we
Oh,
just have to
okay.
have elbow pads on.
Sure. Okay. And then they don't wear headgear in all the amateur fights, do
So
they?
if you have more than 3 fights, you don't have to wear headgear or shin guards. If you have less than 3
Oh,
fights, you have to wear headgear or shin guards. Now that's something I do out of my promotion. Like
I
you go to
see. Okay.
Shamrock, you got people fighting no gear,
Yeah.
and honestly, some of those people shouldn't even be fighting, let alone fighting without you.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. So you have to kind of earn your right to fight without that gear. Prove that you can actually fight before we, send you out there.
Yeah.
Again, I'm not trying to prostitute fighters. I'm not trying to just throw you out there
Yeah.
and get you knocked out or get you hurt and put you in situations that you're not ready for. That's something I take pride in, is protecting my fighters and all that. So
That's awesome. I think we need more of that in the sport. And that's something I really like about my gym training at ES, because Eric has never even brought up like even sparring yet, which I'm like, I'm not even like thinking about sparring. I'm like, I want to really nail my technique before I even think about sparring again. And I've sparred before, but I wasn't ready for it when I started. My cardio wasn't ready for, I mean, my cardio got ready for it because I had to, but I feel like kind of, we've evolved so much in the sport. So it's like, why are we still not focusing on the health and safety of the fighters? It's
there's a
so
lot of
important.
there's a lot of egos. There's a lot of
Yeah.
trainers that honestly shouldn't be trainers.
Yeah.
They get in there. My gym, when we spar, I do a 6-week intro to Muay Thai where they learn how to block, or learn how to check. And then we do like 1-for-1 sparring drills, get them comfortable, kicks only. So we slowly build them up. And some people have to do it, twice, do it 12 weeks. So we don't just throw people in there. But even when we spar, so like I grew up also boxing in the hood. And whenever we boxed, it was not sparring, you were fighting.
Yeah.
In Thailand, we spar every day. Then you're fighting, multiple times in a month. So you don't really spar hard. You work more on your
Right.
timing, your control, setting things up. Because when you're trying to spar hard, right, you're worried about getting hit. So you're not going to try new things. You're going to kind of do what kind of works. You're not actually getting better. You're not trying new techniques out. So that's kind of why we like that. Now, do we spar hard every once in a while? Yes. We
Hmm.
box hard. We clinch hard. But when we do full Muay Thai sparring, maybe if we're not in a fight camp, maybe once or twice.
Sure.
But other than that, we won't really, we still stay light on the head contact, kick the leg, kick the body, nice and hard and fast.
Yeah, I
So, yeah.
think that's so important because it can really turn somebody off to the sport too. If they get started training and somebody's trying to knock their head off, like that's happened to me a
Yeah, it's
couple
not a good
times.
marketing plan for sure.
No, it's really not. And then you're afraid, you get gun shy too, and you're afraid to like use your technique because you don't want to get countered, and you don't want somebody trying to knock your head off in sparring because they, you know, it's like an ego thing for them. And for you, you're just trying to get better. And for them, they're just trying to prove something. And it's like, yeah. And that's why, yeah,
And
I
that
love
comes
training at
down to
ES
gym
because of
culture.
that.
You know,
It is.
the coach has got to be in control of that. You know, if I see that in my gym, you know, we really don't, because in the beginning I really harp on that, on respect. You know, this is martial arts. This isn't, you know, street beefs we're fighting in the backyard. So I've been really blessed to have a great group, but I also think it's, you know, part of the coach and the
Yeah,
community and the structure they have built.
absolutely. Yeah, and that's really cool kind of what you've done with your gym too, and now you're expanding it, and I'm really excited to check out the new gym, especially with it being, you know, out here in St. Charles County. That's super exciting. Because it is intimidating for a lot of, I think there are a lot of people that want to train martial arts, but they don't because of that, because they
Mhm.
don't want to be in this whole ego trip thing and, you know, get their head knocked off because they don't have experience and because somebody wants to prove they're better than them. And it's like, you know, it's not a fight. It's, you're supposed to just be getting better. You know,
Yep.
it's like
Yep.
you want to be tough in your fight, not necessarily in the gym. I think is a better mentality to have. Is, you know, it's to learn, it's to grow, it's to get better. It's not to win, because
Win
it's
the gym
like that's not
title.
gonna, yeah, yeah, you want to be the gym champion, like
Yep.
and especially when it's like somebody that's bigger than you too. It's like, okay, well now you're just a bully, you know.
Yep.
Like at that point it's just silly. So yeah, I really appreciate that mentality with coaches. I think that's so important and so necessary, just to bring people to not only watching the sport but training too. Because in order to get more talent, you got to get more people to start training, and they're not going to want to train somewhere if they're, you know, afraid of the people at the gym. You know, it's so important.
Absolutely. And that's it draws a lot of people away from the sport. You know, they go in there and they have a bad experience, and we're just hurting the sport in the long run.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. And you want to make sure that people are safe, and you want to make sure that they're not putting themselves in harm's way. And especially, well, in two, like when they're getting ready for a fight, you see it all the time, fighters having to pull out because they're sparring too hard. They're training too hard. And yeah, it can really negatively affect your career.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I kind of want to get back to the card on November 11th. Kind of your final thoughts on the matchups. Why should people kind of tune into it, and all the information? Where could people get tickets and all that good stuff?
Yeah, so if you want to get tickets, you can go to standupfightseries.com. We'll also have live pay-per-view available that night. You know, why should you come? You know, I always tell people, if you've never been to a fight night and you've been to like Cardinals baseball or a football game or Blues hockey and you enjoyed that, you're going to enjoy these fights. You know, it's nonstop entertainment. There's personality, like you said, there's knockouts, there's drama. You know, they've got everything there. And then the fighters that we bring in, this isn't, you know, the backyard street beefs fight. These are all people that, you know, train just for this moment for months, years, and to put everything online. They travel to Thailand to train. They, you know, this is what they're, you know, I have guys that, you know, are from the hood that they're looking at this to get out, like looking to put food in their family on the table. It's not just something for fun that we do. And when you come to these fights, you see that. And like my brother, so my brother's never been to fights, and he went to my first one, and now he buys like 12 VIP tickets for all of his business that he owns for them to all come watch, and he uses it as marketing, as like a party. You know, he loves it. You know, he gets invested in it, and I think a lot of people, if you've never been, you need to come out, watch these guys, support it, because these guys are going to be stars. I'm telling you right now. There's this whole main card on this card all have potential to be, you know, pretty big names.
Absolutely, definitely, and it's something that, well, it's in St. Charles this time, right?
Correct.
It's at the Boys and Girls Club.
It is. Yep. So we moved out of
Awesome.
downtown St. Louis. We were at the Casaloma Ballroom. I loved it. Awesome venue. but our attendance dropped about 50%.
Oh,
People didn't
wow.
want to go down to the city. It also didn't help that last time, the week before, it was Cinco de Mayo, and 2 people got shot on Cherokee Street.
That's
So that did
right.
not help. So then I
Yeah.
decided, all right, I love this venue, but dollar wise, it's got to make sense, and it wasn't making sense. So we moved to a venue. It's not my favorite place, but we have a great partner with the Light Lab, that have the big LED wall. They do the lighting
Oh,
there,
nice.
so it's going to look awesome in there. So I'm excited for that.
Cool. Yeah, I was curious about that because I saw that it was in St. Charles this time. So I was wondering, if that was just something that, you guys do on a regular basis, or if it was like something you were wanting to do permanently. Are you wanting to move them more out west, the events, you think?
I want somewhere a little bit nicer.
Yeah.
This place, it's a big basketball gym, but like I said, we're bringing in thousands and thousands of dollars of lights, so it's going to look good in
Yeah.
there. It's not going to be like, hey, we're on a basketball court.
Right.
It's going to look really good. But I want somewhere I can call home. I have plans on doing a show at Family Arena. To make it
Nice.
work, we're going to have to do like a multiple tournament. So we're going to do like a karate tournament, also a point boxing tournament during the day, and then at night maybe do like a mixed card, have a cage and the ring set up, and do kind of like a double header show of MMA and Muay Thai.
Oh, that'd be sweet.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
that's
I would love that. That would be
yeah, so that's
so
something
cool.
we're looking at doing, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, well, because of course you got to sell the tickets and you got to get the eyeballs on it in order to take it to the next level. So hopefully we can make this one a great show, and then who knows what the future holds. I mean, that would be so cool to see stand up fight series in a big arena like that. I would just be going nuts. That'd be
Me
so
too.
cool.
And I'd probably
Yeah,
go extra nuts because the worst part of being a promoter is like you're always checking ticket sales. How's this going and blah blah blah. So it's
yeah,
a lot of stress, a lot of worry, and it's a lot of money. That's the problem about the Family Arena is it's not cheap. But man, I
right.
love St. Louis, but I also hate St. Louis. There's not a lot of good venues here. Um,
Yeah,
and if there is, they're trying to charge way too much money. We had one hotel. We were at the Renaissance Hotel, and I loved it. We had a great partnership with them. Well, then corporate got a hold of it, and then corporate manager tried raising it $15,000 of what we were already paying. So that wasn't
oh
going to
my
work.
gosh.
And then we tried some other big ballrooms. They wanted $20,000 for a night rental. Not going to work. So it's tough finding a good venue that has enough space. I would love to get into Ameristar, but they're in a contract with Shamrock.
Right.
So there's just not many options right now. So if you know anything, let me know. If anybody's
I'll ask
listening.
around. Yeah, because I mean, like I said, I have a pretty decent sized network both here and outside of St. Louis. So I'll ask around. I'll talk to some people, and I'm bringing my friend with me who's pretty well connected as well. So I'll
Awesome.
talk to him and see kind of if we can come up with some ideas, because I think that'd be awesome. And I think it's something that we really need. And if you can, I think venue does make a big difference in selling tickets too. I think, especially right now with the city, like you said, it's hard because a lot of people, even in the city that live there, don't like. I have friends that live in the city, they don't do anything in the city, like they just live there and they do
Yeah.
everything out here. So it's like I think that in as much as I love St. Louis, like I lived in St. Louis for years. I loved it. I lived in South City. I lived in Bevo Mill. I lived in Dogtown, lived in Soulard. Like I love St. Louis. But at the same time, like it gets to a point at times, and that's why I moved out of the
Yeah.
city, because there was a shooting across from my apartment. And I'm like, yeah, I really don't, feel safe here. So I think it's cool that you're kind of moving out west, and we'll hopefully try to find some different venues that we can partner with. That'd be awesome. And anything I can do to help, like I said, just let me know. Cuz
You're doing it
I
right now. I love these podcasts. I love that you're bringing these fighters, giving them a spotlight, and you're also kind of showing them what to do. Like, hey, like this is possible. You can do this. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
anything is possible. Honestly, I believe like the first time I was starting my podcast, like I think I told you last night, Sam shared our podcast, which is awesome because he has a huge network. I mean, he was just on Rogan not too long ago. And so for amateur fighters to get that kind of exposure is just amazing to me. And it's so huge. But like I talked to him, he's been a kind of a mentor of mine too. Talked to him about starting my podcast when I first started it, because I had told him I was going to start it years ago and I never did. And then I finally did. And he's like, what do you want to do with your life? And I'm like, I was kind of dancing around, and he's like, no, what do you really want to do? He's like, because it's possible. He's like, I'm just telling you, like, it's possible. He's like, what you want to do, you can do it. He's like, it's not
you
gonna
would
be
have told
easy,
me
but
5 years ago that I'd be doing what I'm doing now, I'd tell you you're out of your mind. So that's why I get excited, thinking about, okay, another 5 years, what it's going to be, so
oh yeah,
it's pretty cool.
So exciting. Yeah. Like I said, anything I can do to help, let me know. Maybe we'll do at some point, maybe I'll kind of have like a little, I don't know, maybe some kind of a webinar or something like that to teach fighters how to create content or something like that. That'd be fun. And I don't know, anything, like I said, anything I can do. And I'm trying to kind of help that with the gym too, and kind of talking to them about like my process and what I'm doing, giving them the little inside scoop of, how I'm doing my podcast. Cause I think it would be cool if more fighters did what I'm doing. Also, and even not even just showing like their training, but like they could even do like fight breakdowns themselves. And I think that would be really cool, because I think people want to hear what fighters think about fights. Like they want to see the fighters' opinions on, like, maybe there's a big kickboxing match that goes down, or even just talking about like Francis Ngannou versus Tyson Fury, stuff like that. I think, anything that can get views, obviously, they should be talking about. And you don't have to have a whole studio. You don't have to have anything fancy. Like I started off with, just a cheap microphone, and you don't even need that. You can just use the microphone on your phone, on your camera. You don't even need anything fancy when you're getting started, because you'll evolve and you'll kind of slowly get better and better at like editing and all that. And it takes time, but once you figure it out, then you're like, oh man, I could take this to a crazy level and do some really cool things. And that's what I'm hoping, like I said, that I can do with, bringing people on that are, like brought the BKFC champ on. I've brought on UFC fighters. I've brought on PFL, Game Bread. I'm involved with, Fight Bananas and Game Bread FC. And so I'm involved with so many different things. So I'm hoping that reach and that exposure can help out the local scene and kind of merge them together and get the eyeballs on our fights. Because who knows, at some point, people might start traveling out here to come to these shows. Honestly, I mean, people from, the Midwest and other cities in like Illinois, Arkansas, like the surrounding states, like people might start driving up here to, especially if we get, fighters from those states to fight on these cards too.
Absolutely. That's the goal. The goal is not just to be a local show.
Yep. 100%. Well, that's really cool. Any final thoughts? Anything else? Any shout outs that you want to make or anything like that?
No, just come out, support these fighters. Even if you go to the fights, you don't, know anyone. I guarantee you at the end of the night, you're going to have a favorite fighter. You're going to have a blast. It's just a good time. And thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. Like I said, I appreciate what you're doing for the community right now. It's a small community out here of fighters, and but it's a great community. So thank you again for doing that. I'm just very blessed and humbled to be a part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. I will be there obviously on the 11th, and I'm excited to hang out and get to know the fighters even more. It's been really cool to kind of interact with them on social media too, and just kind of seeing all their different personalities. So I'm really excited to meet a lot of them in person and see their fights. It's gonna be a great event. So thank you too for coming on. I mean, I know you're busy. You've got this event coming up. You got your gym. You got your 45 degrees. So yeah, I appreciate it. I really do. And anytime, you're welcome to come on. And like I said, any of the fighters too, if they need, to promote their fights, if they need anything, just let me know and I'll bring them on and create some nice content and hopefully that will help them, give them a little pop.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.